Bonsoir! I'm the Mademoiselle and ça se deuxième Chanel. And as you guys can tell by today's title, we are going to be talking about St.Anne. Now, the thing is with St.Anne, it's it's interesting, and I really want to hear your opinions and your stories down below, because if you are a Haitian born in Haiti, you more than likely have heard of St.Anne. Now, before we even get started, I know the background's different. I left my tripod in the car and I do not feel like getting it. Shout out to the desk tripod holding us down. Okay, so I hope it's not too much of a throw off. And of course, do not forget to like, share, subscribe. Make sure you guys peep the description box for everything you guys ask about all the time in the comment section. Additionally, happy Haitian Heritage Month. You already know we are turning up this month, as I always do on Instagram. That's when I take you guys through a journey of Haitian music genres and dance styles. So please make sure you guys go follow me on Instagram. It is always here on the screen. So St.Anne. The reason I decided to talk about St.Anne is because I had a conversation with my mom not too long ago about infertility. Now, if you guys are not aware, my mom has suffered with infertility her entire life, hence why I am her only child. Every child she had before and after me has tragically passed away in the womb, with the exception of twin brothers that I was supposed to have that passed away very shortly after birth. I also talked about how my father serves Urzily, and Urzily do not play when it comes to her men. There are certain strict guidelines you have to follow when it comes to serving her. And a lot of it has to do with not sleeping with your wife on certain days, not having, children, or not having certain children. Like, it's a lot. Okay. So unfortunately, I do believe, and my mom truly believes, that a lot of her babies were eaten up by Urzily, because every single time she would have a child and the child would pass away, she would pop up. Now, I have no idea why I was allowed to live. I'm not even going to hold you, but I will say Urzily is always with me, okay? From Duntor to Freda to Grun. I see them at different times. Freda is probably the only one that I see with me all the time. But the rest of them, I only see them when something bad happens. And it's very interesting because most of the time they don't really say much. But Freda, she's great, okay? I love her. She's always around, okay? I love all of you. Please don't be upset. But, she's the one that's always around. So when it came to my mom speaking to me about St.Anne, I was very, very interested. I also went to Catholic school from pre-K to 8th. So when it comes to the saints, I know a lot about a lot of saints. You can name a saint. I could tell you what they're a patron of, what they died for, etc. And saints are very, very similar to Loi in Haitian voodoo culture. They are very, very important to us. Now, what's funny is, contrary to popular belief, we do not worship saints like a lot of people think we do. They are just extremely important, and they are here to help us get closer to God. They are basically that in between. Very annoying, because you'll always hear people be like, oh, well, Catholics worship saints and da 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 da. They don't care about God. They worship statues. And it's like, you guys are so dumb. All of it is really just as representation. It's not anyone worshiping statues or anything like that. Just like in Haitian voodoo and other spiritual practices, there are lois and deities and things of the sort. We have saints, which are a little bit different now that I think about it, even though a lot of times we see them mixed due to history. If you guys are not aware, Haitians had to hide their culture. Okay. At the time, they were Africans and they were slaves, and they had to hide their culture. They were being slapped with the Bible. They were being told, listen, if you do not practice this, you are demons. You are horrible people, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of the slaves said, F that. We do not care about what you're talking about. We are going to serve what we serve. So a lot of the saints ended up being venerated as Loi. But they aren't connected for the most part. And you're going to see why I said I want to hear your thoughts and opinions down below. Because in a lot of ways, right, you'll always hear people say, oh, if you're Catholic and you're Haitian, you're a demon worshiper. You are a voodooist. Da, da, da. First of all, none of that is the same thing. A voodooist and a demon worshiper and someone that is Catholic, 3 completely different things. But a lot of times people merge them because ignorance. All right. Very sad that we have the internet and people refuse to use it. All right. A lot of people feel like, okay, well, if you don't believe in God and the only true God and you're not Christian, then whatever. And that's what has caused people to literally lose their lives all of this time that we've been humans. And it's very sad that we cannot seem to break away from that. Now, when it comes to saints, a lot of people do go to them, as well as angels and deities and Loi and things of the sort, because you do need that extra help. Of course, you're always going to ask God for help. But when you're praying to a saint or Loi, whatever, it's a tad bit different. You ask God to open those lines of communication, and then you go and you address the saints, etc., etc. Each saint is a patron of different things, but if you have a saint that walks with you or a saint that is very prominent in your family, they're always going to be there for you no matter what, okay? It's just like the angels. I believe I might have done a video about guardian angels, but there's archangels, there's guardian angels. Like it's a whole thing. Like if you really look into it, it's very fascinating. And I think we should all be really, really grateful that there are beings out there that will help us no matter if we believe in it or not. So when my mother said that she genuinely would never go to St.Anne, I was a little confused because I'm like, it's a saint. Like what is the issue with going to a saint? She started by telling me this story. So she was telling me how there was a woman in her village. This had to be like maybe the 70s or 80s. And she was married to this man and they were very much in love. They were probably like one of the top couples in the area. Like everyone loved to see them. They were extremely cute. Okay. They were that model couple. However, unfortunately, no matter how many times they tried to have a child, it just would not work. She went to so many doctors. He's went to doctors and they couldn't find any real issues. Now, I will say we know a lot more about infertility. Sometimes your body could genuinely just be allergic to the partner, like legit. And sometimes, a lot of times actually, your DNA is just not compatible. But back in those days, it was just like, hey, you're medically cleared. You're fine. I don't know why you can't have a baby like everybody else. So this lady went and did what most people would do, which is go to church and pray. Now, I'm not sure what type of church she went to, but wherever this church was, they did have a statue of St.Anne as well as St. Washim. Now, the thing is with St.Anne and St. Washim, and I'm saying it very, very Haitian, okay? If you're American, it's probably St.Anne or Joachim or Joshim. I have no idea how you even say that name in English, but probably Joachim. Yeah, I think it's Joachim. Okay, they are Jesus's grandparents. You don't hear about much of them in the Bible. You might see a story or two, but you're not going to hear about them often. And I don't know why. It actually kind of bothers me now that I think about it, because they are legitimate saints and they were legitimate people. Their lives on the line for God, but most importantly, they were there for Mary. They raised Mary. They were the ones that raised her to be so devout, which allowed her to say yes to birthing baby Jesus. So I don't like the fact that she's not really mentioned in the Bible, but also if you're not aware, the Bible is heavily redacted. That's why it's funny, right? I'll never convert to anything. I'm not going to hold you. I think I'm going to be Catholic for the rest of my life because I believe in the saints more than anything else. I think the Bible is heavily redacted and should not be trusted because it was held by man for so long who had ulterior motives. There are a lot of books that were removed specifically so the slaves could not revolt and learn about who they truly were. Like, there's a lot that I don't like about that. So when it comes to the Bible, I'm very, very iffy about it, but I do like Psalms. Okay, I like Deuteronomy. Okay, I like John. Okay, there's certain chapters I like, and I think it's an entertaining book, but I would never sit there and live my life by what's in the Bible. That's why when people try to throw Bible verses on me, I'm like, okay, now have you read the missing books? There's a lot of missing books. Why don't you go read that and then come back to me? But that is not the point, okay? So, you know, when it came to her, she was very devout, okay? This lady was devout. We're going to have to name her. We're going to name her Melanie, okay? Melanie was very, very devout, and she never stopped praying. So this was something that was very natural to her. Now, the thing is, well, he wasn't that devout, okay? Like, he was Catholic, but he didn't really go to church like that. So she would always go to church by herself. So one day she goes to this statue of St.Anne because she knows that she is the mother of mothers, and she's also the patron saint of a lot of other things, including educators, minors, seamstresses, women in labor, pregnant women. And she is also the saint of Quebec, Canada, and Brittany, France. So, you know, she goes to her and she's like, hey, I really want to have a child. I've tried everything. I've done everything. And I genuinely don't know what to do anymore because I might lose my marriage over this. And shortly after, St.Anne came to her in her dreams and she told her, I will help you conceive this child, but you must bring this child back to me. I've told so many stories very similar to this, but it's never typically about a saint. And it's funny because there's a lot of people that be like, oh, well, when you ask something from God or something that's godly and something that's clean and something that's good, it's never going to ask you for something in return. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm really not, because I know there's a lot of people out there that be like, God, if you give me this job, I'm going to make sure I go to church every Sunday. Do you go to church every Sunday? Probably not. and more than likely God gonna take that shit back if you don't humble yourself and go to church like you said. Okay, so it's just like, I don't know why people like to act so dense and stupid. Like when I say things like this, it's like, I'm not saying like it's gonna be like a law where they're like, give me $100 and I'll give you, no, it's never like that. But for the most part, when you're going to any being and you're asking for something, they're going to ask you for something in return. It's not always going to be like that, but if it's something as big as a child, okay, that you're more than likely probably not supposed to have, and that's probably why you're not having it. And I hate to say it like that, but yeah, there's a lot of people out there that want to have kids and they really shouldn't be parents. There's a lot of people out there that want to have kids for the wrong reasons. Therefore, that's probably why they're not able to conceive naturally. When it comes to my mom, yeah, like I ain't gonna hold you. Sometimes I'm like, why the hell was I born? I go through a lot of hardship, okay? If you guys been watching me on my like main channel, especially for years, you'll know like my life has been insane. Okay, it's just like, damn, I should have stayed in the ball sack. You know, and also it's like, you know, I grew up in the hood. I had to see people get shot. You know, like, it's just like, I really wish I would have stayed where I was. Like, you know, a lot of us could relate to this. Well, a lot of people are probably upset by what I'm saying, okay? I'm not saying that all infertile people should not be parents, or people having problems with conceiving should not be parents, and that's probably why they're not. But I'm saying for a lot of people, they really should not be having kids. It's just like how they say, you know, children deserve parents, but not all parents deserve a child, whatever the case may be. Same difference, okay? So for me, in this type of case where I hear stories like this, it's just like, yeah, sometimes when you ask for what you should not have, it's just going to be a very, very difficult path if it's not something that's in your natural path. And, you know, she gave her this child and she said, you know, bring her back to me. And also make sure you name this child after me. And, you know, make sure you visit. That's all it was. Those were the only stipulations. So, of course, within a few months, she ends up having this child, well, pregnant with child. And then, of course, 9 months later, you know, the child comes out. And she ends up naming the child Bethany. Yeah, of course, that's a fake name, but let's just say she didn't name her Anne. Okay. And obviously Anne is not very happy about this, because not only did she break that rule, but she ends up going to the United States. Okay. Her and her husband end up going to the United States, and they stay there for the rest of their lives. They visit every 2 to 3, maybe every 6 years or so. And sometimes she would go back to that church and she would visit St.Anne. Sometimes she would skip the visit altogether. And of course, Anne wasn't really happy about that, because lady, you made a promise and I gave you your baby. Okay. So it's time for you to hold up your end of the bargain. Not only is this child named Bethany, but you don't even come to the church when you're around. What's going on? You know, another stipulation was to make sure that the kid kept up with the faith. But instead of remaining in the Catholic way, she ended up becoming Christian. Okay. Now, a Christian is basically someone that believes in God. So technically Catholics do fall under that line. Okay. I'll put the definition right here. But okay, we all know there's a difference between a Catholic and a Christian church. So in this case, she ended up converting to, let's say, Pentecostal. And, you know, she kind of stopped going to Catholic churches altogether. And it's so funny because I'm so used to just saying a person that believes in God, but basically the Christian teachings, which the one true God thing, y'all already know. If you know, you know. But I know some people don't believe in that. I respect that. But y'all get it. Let's just say her life started to go really, really bad, and her child's health declined rapidly. So let's say at this point, the child is like 8. And she ends up developing an insanely rare condition. Like, I'm talking about like something with her lymph nodes. Let's just say that. It was a very, very rare condition. And it was something where like it didn't run in the family. It wasn't environmental. It wasn't circumstantial. Like, she just got it out of nowhere. And eventually Melanie's like, shit. Like, could this be because like I broke some sort of rule or whatever? And this is funny. She never told her husband about what she did. Okay. She never told her husband like, hey, I went to St.Anne to ask for a child or whatever. She just kind of chalked it up to, you know, maybe it's natural circumstances, until it got to the point where the child got the prognosis of literally dying in like within a year. They said she would not live to see her 9th birthday. So she goes to Haiti and she goes back to St.Anne and she's like, please save my child. Please help my child. This is your child. You know, like, you helped me have this child. Like, I can't lose her. She's my everything. She's my only child. And a few days later, St.Anne comes to her dreams and she's like, first of all, you had a few simple rules to follow and you followed none. So I'm taking back what's mine. And obviously, Melanie is freaking out. She's terrified. She doesn't know what to do. So at this point, she is forced to tell her husband because she is riddled with guilt. She's like, listen, I feel like our child is going to pass away and it's going to be all of my fault. So now her husband's looking at her like, are you dumb? Now, although her husband wasn't necessarily too religious, he was very, very keen on what St.Anne was and how she grants miracles, but also the miracles come at a price. So he's like, literally, you signed our child's death warrant. First of all, why didn't you just name the kid Anne? Like, I didn't care what the kid's name was, because he's the one that picked Bethany. But he's like, if I had known that you made that deal, I would have told you just name the kid Anne. Like, this is like unacceptable. Like, literally, there's no way we're gonna get out of this. So now the husband springs into action and he goes to an Ogon. He's like, yeah, your wife made a deal and the deal has not been honored. Now, let's just pause the story right here. This is why I'm just like, is this not Grun Urzuli? Like, when my mom was telling me this story, I was like, is this not Grun Urzuli? Like, I've never heard of anything like this happening with a saint. And she's like, honestly, I think it is. I think a lot of these people think that they're praying to St.Anne, but I guess something switches over when you're asking for something you shouldn't have. And I was like, that's very interesting, okay? And I started thinking, I'm like, okay, that's very interesting, because when you think about it, right, a lot of the saints have been, you know, kind of crossed over with the Haitian voodoo religion, even though they're two completely separate entities. I feel like when you're asking for certain things that are impossible or not in your set path, you kind of teeter into the waters of possibly asking a loi without knowing that you're asking a loi. So in my opinion, my assessment was that is Grun Urzuli and she bugged the fuck out. Like, I would never make a promise to Urzuli and break it. Okay, that is just craziness. So the Ogon is like, yeah, like, there's no way to get out of this. You guys are gonna have to honor the deal. And my husband's like, I didn't make a deal with that lady. Like, I ain't got nothing to do with this. Like, please fix it. Like, I'll give you however much money, you know, I need to give you, because this is insane. So literally the child's at the brink of death. Like, I'm talking about the kid is no longer, like, it's sad because there's no type of modern medicine that was going to help this situation. But luckily on that trip to Haiti, they did bring the child because none of the American medicine was working. So they decided, you know, to come to Haiti, give her the fresh herbs and fae and all of that. And they ended up taking her to the Ogon, and the Ogon did cure this child. Unbelievable story. I was listening to my mom like, this is nuts. The mom was able to work out a different deal where essentially she returned to Catholic Church. So she was instated or I don't know. How does that work? I want to know, if you leave Catholicism, be baptized into another church, and you come back to Catholicism, I wonder if you have to start everything over again. Because if you're not aware, as a Catholic person, there are different sacraments. You have, it's baptism, then it is, wow, I completely forgot that. It's baptism, then it's the reconciliation, then it's communion, then it's confirmation, then it's marriage. I might have messed that up, but I don't think so. I feel like reconciliation, it has another name, but you guys understand, right? So I don't know if she'd have to go through all of that again, but nonetheless, she was cured. And the deal was they had to return back to Catholic Church. The child had to be baptized, and the child had an added middle name of Anne. So she became like Bethany Anne. And yeah, everything was well for the rest of that child's life. There was no more incidents. They did continue to keep going to church. And it just goes to show, do not make deals that you can't keep. Okay. Do not write checks that your ass cannot cash. Okay. Like, and it's very interesting because every time I think about this story, I'm like, was that St.Anne or was that Urzuli? Okay, and she told me a few other stories too, but that one always sticks in my mind because it's just like, I've never heard of any saint making that type of deal. I feel like maybe that lady, because a lot of people in Haiti have this stigma, okay? As a voodooist, you don't want people to know that you're a voodooist. So a lot of them will worship, but they'll never truly worship, okay? Like, especially in public. So I feel like she did go to Grun Urzuli, but she kept saying, oh, I'm going to church. I'm going to the statue, or I prayed to God. Or I prayed to St.Anne and they gave me this, knowing damn well she went to Grun Urzuli. That's my thing, because there's no way. I don't know, but I could be wrong. And I want to hear your thoughts and opinions down below. What do you guys think? Do you think it was St.Anne? Do you guys think it was Urzuli? And most importantly, do you have an experience with St.Anne or any other saint? With that being said, make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. And I'm going to see y'all next time.